Hey, Dean Yeager.
Back we did a video over the Lord of the Rings franchise, and obviously there's another franchise that needs to be discussed.
Gollum.
Is it about Gollum?
Yeah, well, he's introduced in it.
I'm confused. What are we talking about?
Talking about the Hobbit.
The Hobbit! Oh, yeah.
He's introduced in the Hobbit, yeah.
Yeah, but he was already introduced in Lord of the Rings. This is just his prequel story.
Well, yeah, cinematically, but I mean...
Yes, we are talking about The Hobbit.
Yes.
And, I first of all, I love the series. But I remember when it was announced, I was a little critical about it because I was like, in the first series, you had 3 books, three movies. This was 1 book, 3 films.
Well, originally, though, it was supposed to be a duology. It was supposed to be 2 films. But then, for whatever reason...
He extended it to 3.
Into 3.
And then the son of a gun did the same thing he did to us in Lord of the Rings, made us wait a year for each one.
Right.
3 years of your life gone. So 6 years. I'm not going to say how old I am, but I feel like I'd be 6 years younger because I just wanted to blaze through the year just to get to the movie.
But it's still a testament to his genius because he shoots them back to back to back. But
yes, great film. Obviously, this one is obviously before what happens to Lord of the Rings. Right. Thorin Oakeshield, who is the dwarf king. It's basically about the Lonely Mountain.
Yeah.
And how this dragon named Smaug takes over it, and Gandalf, Thorin, and what is it, 7 dwarves, I think, or 6?
I think it was like 12 or 14, wasn't it?
I don't think it was that much. Anyway, Bilbo, and they drop Bilbo, and they go on an expedition to get the Lonely Mountain back because Gandalf, to his point, is afraid that there may be an alliance in the north, and they could really be handicapped later on. So, and that's where, that's basically the gist of the story, and, but just an amazing.
I remember reading it when I was young. I think a couple times I took it. I was fascinated by fantasy and sci-fi. So I was a big fan of The Hobbit. I was excited. It was like you. I had my reservations about it when it was announced because I thought, well, why revisit? Let's just leave it as an established fact that The Hobbit happened, or why do we have to go back and this and that? But I was pleasantly surprised. I really enjoyed the series. A lot to be said in comparison and contrast to Lord of the Rings as far as cinematically. I guess you could. But at the end of the day, why would you? Tolkien wrote 2 separate stories there.
Well, and they are sort of intertwined. If you geek out on this stuff, there's a great channel here on YouTube called Nerd of the Rings.
Right.
This guy's great. But, basically the first one is Unexpected Journey and Gandalf. And there's a whole backstory to this. It just jumps right into the movie. Right. But, Gandalf's been around the hobbits. He cares for the creatures. He has a soft heart for them. He, notices Bilbo likes to go on these long adventures.
Right.
So he's like, I want you to go on an expedition with us. And that's where all the dwarves meet up. And they're, basically going to start their journey. One of my favorite parts of the movie is when they're singing.
Yeah.
Talking about, the Misty Mountain Calls.
Yes.
That was,
I'm glad they kept that because that was a big part in the book. Obviously, any fan of Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, or The Hobbit, in this case, the songs and whatnot were a big part. They were a big part. And I'm glad that Jackson decided to keep that. And I couldn't say, as many characters, because quite a bit more now, because you're talking 12, 14 dwarves, plus Bilbo, plus Gandalf. they all interacted so well, and I think Jackson did a great job of giving each one some screen time. Some more than others, obviously. That's the way it's going to pan out. But I think every single one of them just acted their pants off. I thought they did a wonderful job, and I thought they did a great job, as a team collectively acting.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a sore spot in the group, I guess is what I'm saying.
I also like the fact that they mention the other wizards.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
it's briefly, he talks about the blue wizards, which again, you want to find out about that. There's a great video in Lord of the Rings about that. But also talks about the brown wizard, which Radagast, which is a little more I guess upped about him with the animals and stuff. That's a little more overplayed, but it does work. I love the fact that they get what's his name to return as Lord Elrond, the head elf.
Hugo Weaving. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was great, and they go to Rivendell, which is just. I mean, some of these shots are just amazing, and
back to New Zealand again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And they go into the caves where I forget those creatures they have to fight off. But
the goblins,
yes.
The Goblin King and all that.
That was great. And then, of course, one of the great iconic parts in the book, the game of riddles with Bilbo and Gollum.
Yeah.
That was great. And that, from what I understand, from what I've read, that was straight out of the book. Like, nothing was really changed.
Just like with Frodo, you had Elijah Wood,
which he showed up, for a minute. Yeah.
The total embodiment of Frodo. Martin Freeman plays a young Bilbo. You couldn't ask for anyone else. I don't think I could envision anyone else. And then I think Evangeline, that was some controversy. Evangeline Lilly shows up as an elf who falls in love with one of the dwarves. Her character was just...
Well, that's in the second one.
Okay, yeah. But she was created out of thin air.
Yeah. But basically, they leave Rivendell. They're on their quest. They have to fight off the goblins. I forget the bad guy in that. It's the Destroyer.
Necromancer?
I think that's what it is.
Saruman?
It's one of Saruman's. Necromancer Destroyer. I think that's his name. But anyway, they're cornered basically. Yeah. And of course they get out of it, and then it ends with a bird, I guess, notifying Smaug that people are coming. Yeah. And that's where we end. We got to wait a year, and then we get the Desolation of Smaug, which is the second one. Right. They're still on their journey. They meet the shapeshifter, who's in the book. He could be a bear, a wolf.
Yeah. I'm trying to.
He's great.
Yeah.
But they get to that forest. Yeah. That was great. That
was it. Mirkwood?
I think so. But they have to go through the forest, but you have to stay on the trail because that forest will consume you. And one of the parts that cracks me up the most is that they get lost and they start to get influenced. Well, at one point, Bilbo is walking and he looks down and his feet are actually walking backwards, and he just goes, "That seems right." But
when the trolls take him captive, right?
No, it was the Wood Elves, which we get Orlando Bloom back.
Yeah, as
which
Legolas,
I give a lot of credit to bring back. Like of course you bring back Gandalf. You
got Saruman comes back with the Council, the White Council. Kate Blanchett, Hugo Weaving, obviously Elrond. So you get nearly the whole crew.
The only one we didn't get back was Viggo Mortis.
Well, and
he said he didn't want to come back because Aragorn's not in the book, but from what I understand, he is in the book.
Strider. You mentioned, and the same thing with Gimli the dwarf, but instead of Gimli, you have his grandfather. Right?
Yeah, that's Milad.
That's
Gimli. Gimli. But they get captured by the Wood Elves. They escape. Right. They make it to that town on the river. I forget the name of the town. Yeah. And they're getting closer, and they finally do get to the Lonely Mountain. And I love that scene with Bilbo and Smaug, and of course we get
Benedict Cumberbatch
as the voice.
As a
And
voice.
I've seen behind the scenes, he doesn't just sit there and do a voice over a microphone. He actually was on the ground doing the movements.
Yeah.
And they mimicked his movements and the CGI'd it all together, which is amazing.
Well, speaking of that, and I don't know if we mentioned in Lord of the Rings, but Andy Serkis as Gollum, you know,
Yes.
speaking about someone who, back then with Lord of the Rings, I think the technology was sort of not novel, but it was fairly new.
It wasn't even, I don't even think it was really known.
Yeah, and then stop motion capture, I think is what they call it, CGI, and so in this, I mean, the guy just.
Well, it was, you know, they had to basically create some of their own, like write their own computer software, especially with these big giant battles.
Yeah.
And they had to write each, you know, person their own person.
Right.
And he said, and actually half of them were smart because when the battle started, half of them turned and ran back the other way. So like, okay, we got to reprogram this to where they have to actually fight. But he said those were actually the smart ones. They said, we're not fighting, we're getting the heck out of here. But yeah, but you know, go back to the Hobbit, and I mean, and just the visual effects that are in that film, and the actors would say it like, you know, you're shooting 90% blue or green screen.
Yeah.
You don't see none of this until the final product comes out, and yeah, but you know that whole thing with Smaug and the burglar, then they try to, you know, kill Smaug.
Yeah.
It doesn't go well, so he goes, you know, to the town to light it up.
Yeah.
And that's where we get left. And we got to wait another year.
Another year, yeah.
And then we get the Battle of the Five Armies, which is just like, to me, Return of the King. This one was just amazing.
It was. I remember reading that in the novel form, and then, of course, seeing it on the screen. And one thing I want to say is the guy playing Thorin Oakenshield, I don't know the actor's name. Forgive me for that. But the way what do they call it? Gold disease.
Yes.
Dragon disease.
Yes.
He's consumed with greed, you know, almost supernaturally or magically. And I thought he did a heck of a job as someone. That's all he cares about.
And then he finally kind of wakes up.
Sure, yeah.
That is such a powerful moment for me, you know, because his cousin is there, that other dwarf, and they're fighting. Well, they're starting to get boxed in, and he said, "Where's he at?"
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden you see the door, whatever, bust open, and he comes running out.
Yeah.
And it's like this big hoorah, and then he's like, everybody, you know, and then I think Bilbo even says that the dwarves are rallying, and they're rallying to their king.
Yeah.
So that was great. I mean, obviously there's some sad points, you know, a couple of the dwarves, you know,
they don't make it.
They don't make it, including
Thorin Oakenshield.
Thorin.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was sad. But Bilbo returns home, and you know, and that's a great scene too, because they think he's dead, so they're selling all his stuff. Those are my spoons. And it's like, you know, and then it ends basically where Lord of the Rings picks up,
yeah.
But yeah, overall, just amazing. The Hobbit, you know, it's right there with Lord of the Rings in my book. Yeah. I mean, I can't really pick which one was better.
No, you can't. I mean, again, there was some division about that. I've heard different perspectives on it, you know. But I think ultimately the stories are obviously different motivations, different reasons, but it stands for themselves, man. And it to me, I love them both.
Yes.
I own, you know, both trilogies. You know, all six
of them.
So
try to watch those all in one sitting.
what was got
especially
12
the
hours?
extended cuts.
Yeah. Did they do extended cuts on the Hobbit films?
I think they did.
Did they?
I think they did.
Okay.
Out of the three, can you pick one that's your favorite?
You know, usually with it, I enjoyed. I
got nothing.
No, just thinking about it, I would say I enjoyed the first one, and usually because there's like a magical, mystical element to it. I don't know if you want to call it that, or if I want to call it that, but it's about them gathering together, getting ready for this journey, convincing Bilbo to go on the journey. Just those first few steps in that direction is always great. I'd almost have to go with the first one.
I would have, I would agree with you. I go with the third one, but the first one to me was like, it was almost like rewinding the clock back 10 years.
Yeah.
Sitting down for that first one, which
Yeah.
I had more understanding of this one when like I said in the first Lord of the Rings, I had no idea what I was getting into. I wasn't even planning on seeing it until my friend asked me, "Hey, do you want to go watch that movie with me?" I'm like, and I even tried to talk him out. I'm like, "But you got your ticket in advance. I don't have my ticket." He said, "Oh, there'll be plenty of tickets." And I was, "All right, screw it, I'll go." But going into The Hobbit, it was like rewinding the clock back to being a junior in high school when that first came out. And I loved it. And like you said, those first few steps is great. To be different, I'll pick the third one just because of all the action. Those battle sequences are, to me, are some of the best in cinema.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you, man. Jackson just really, and I think he had a partner who helped him. I forgot her name now, but she helped him on Lord of the Rings and on The Hobbit. The two of them could really just put it together, nailed it, and I think they're making a television series, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Is it necessary? I guess we're going to find out. I mean, to me, this was a bookend. This was closure.
If they're going to do stuff like I said, and again, if you geek out over this stuff, Nerd of the Rings, and then there's another one. I think it's called the Middle East or Middle Earth. There's tons of them. Nerd of the Rings was the best one that I found. If you do films like Aragorn's travels from when he was a teenager all the way till his passing, that would be interesting to watch. Or Gandalf, because he, like I said, this guy did that, and where Gandalf went and all this other stuff. It would have been interesting. He even did a video if Gandalf actually took the ring.
Yeah.
From Frodo. Like, I'll take the ring. And they're talking about some of the stuff that would happen.
That one I haven't watched, but there's...
It depends on what they do. If you're going to be like, oh, we're going to go here, be parallel, or we're going to kind of redo it, we're just going to go more in depth, that doesn't really strike me as interesting. But again, if you're going to do something like that, like Aragorn's travels, or even Legolas's,
Well, the thing about it is with these shows now is 20 years ago, or 15 years ago even, or even 10 years ago, when after The Lord of the Rings came out, let's say maybe before The Hobbit, the technology and the standards in television weren't what you have now.
Yeah.
To where you can conceive an idea and follow through to completion, production on a show. I mean, the scale of Lord of the Rings, you talk about something that a man created his entire world. It was world building. I mean, created his own language, for goodness sake, several languages. For the elves, the dark language. I mean, it just, you could plumb the depths of it, but you couldn't have done it until, I think, until now.
Yeah.
That's the wonderful thing about it.
It's amazing that those books were even written. And stuff like, again, like the Blue Elves. He took the time to create these Blue Elves in his Middle Earth, but got such a big, vast Middle Earth and so much stuff going on, they just kind of gotten forgotten.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters, and I haven't really studied, done a whole lot of research on the mythology of it all, but there's an awful lot of characters that he just created, and then maybe you never revisit them again.
Or they just show up later.
Yeah.
Shout out Nerd of the Rings. Like I said, if you geek out on this stuff, check it out.
Yeah.
But, there's our discussion on The Hobbit. We've discussed now Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
There's nothing more appropriate I could say than it's a beautiful ring.
And on that note...
misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away ere break of day to find our long forgotten gold. the fire was red.